Porsche 911s. They come in several flavors, everything from super rare special editions, to track cars, to an almost 500 horsepower Carrera S, and now even a hybrid. Combine that with the opportunity to customize any of those with a dizzying array of color, performance, style, or even pageantry options. And the Porsche world of 2025 is left with a new question. Do we even need the base model? So if I were to throw out the term mid-cycle refresh, what would that mean to you? Most people would say, that sounds very industry-specific and pedantic. However, it still conveys what it is, a change, just not a very big change. Think of it as like a bookmark in between generational changes of cars. So here, we're getting some changes, but the biggest changes by far are subtle changes to the look of a car that really changes on a very evolutionary basis. Now, if you remember when the 991 came out, that changed the car completely because that was the biggest evolution of a Porsche really since the 911 came out because they moved the engine an inch farther forward. But the look of the car got wider, they didn't have like different size hips in the back, so it was more sensual. Yet it was such a letdown in the front because it had this big gaping hole. Here they fixed that. You don't have to spend $3,200 like you did previously to get the sport front fascia. Instead, what's going on here is a reinterpretation, not just in the form, but also the function. This being a car with the engine in the back, they still have to run air through it somehow. So we have the larger openings, but the form changes. Here, I would argue it's significantly stronger and much more attractive. However, that's where the good news stops. Perhaps this is a function of me being Greek, but the RS end, it's not as pretty as it once was. Here, there used to be this beautiful, sensual light that goes all the way through. They've changed this whole system where they've made the Porsche bigger here, and it sits between the signals, and then you have the running light here. But wait, there's more. This is a German car, so they have to make things very complex. So they add a piece of plastic that separates out the two layers of the tail lamp. Yes, I'm being incredibly pedantic here, but this is a car that is very much about design, an evolution of design, and this to me is an evolution backwards. The question is, with the update, did they keep a lid on the weight? And there, absolutely yes, 3,342 pounds, or depending on expressed weights and measures, 1,515 kilograms. However, the car you and I are driving right now is not 3,342 pounds. It's a little over 200 pounds more because it has the folding roof. With that sport mode, and notice it's here as standard on the basic car. 3,000, oh, what? No, nope. 4,000 RPM. This thing absolutely wakes up. And this is where we get into not acceleration or immediacy of the delivery of power. This is more about psychology. This car ain't cheap, but this is the most basic 911 on offer, or at least most basic convertible. And this is north of $120. And there, I'm having a hard time with the first number of the output being a 3, especially in today's day and age where the same money gets you something like 600 horsepower. Granted, it's not as engaging of a driving experience, I totally understand. And this, at least from the feel, the seat of the pants, behind the wheel, whatever you want to call it, this is a quick car. When you look at the numbers, 0 to 60 in the basic one without the Sport Chrono, it's just under 4 seconds, 3.9 with the Sport Chrono, 3.7. Now, I'd say a couple years ago, man, that's a quick car. But in today's day and age, is that a quick car? Because like Toyotas would do that. And that's where psychology leads us to a question. Is this enough? 380 horsepower. Is this forward thrust enough for the basic version of one of the most stored cars on the planet? Over the years, you and I have had a long-running technical discussion about lighting. And it's time for an update because we've had some significant changes, and not really just in the Porsche world. You see, us Americans have been jealous of Europeans, not just for their food supply, but also because of their lighting. You see, they have adaptive beam lights. Basically, it's an always-on high beam system that allows for a carve-out when oncoming traffic, or if you're in like a city or it's pedestrians. Basically, it's not just the lights that pick it up or the sensor in the car, it's also based on the navigation and the GIS data. Very fascinating stuff. But here in America, we can't have nice things. That, at least, was up until 2022, where the US government finally blessed these systems. So there were a number of car manufacturers that put the systems in their cars but deactivated them from a software perspective. So now we're getting to the point where we're opening the floodgates, generally on expensive cars. Like, for example, 992s, you could have gotten somewhat of a system like this. Didn't really work that way, but it had all these different LEDs in it. That was a $4,000 option. That system is now standard on even the most basic of 911s. One can tell the difference very easily between a .1 or .2 by the light signature. It's a bit different here, but it's still punctuated by the 4 different lights around the edges of the overall assembly. However, Porsche, they can't leave well enough alone. This car indeed has the LED matrix system as standard, but they also offer the HD LED matrix system. That, of course, will cost you more money. Okay, so let's open things up, put aside the psychology, and understand, well, how do they make a little bit more power from effectively the same engine? And there, it's a couple of bits that have changed. The turbochargers are larger, but specifically, they come from the .1 S and GTS. So basically, the car is forcing more air into effectively the same block, so it's breathing better, which gives us 9 more horsepower. But more importantly, you don't feel like there's weight where it shouldn't be in other German convertibles. I don't feel like it's getting in the way of the driving experience. The only thing I notice here is maybe it gives up a bit to an S with all the chassis tuning and all the chassis options. That's really what you're missing when you go down from an S to the basic car. And it gets back into, I guess, a cerebral exercise of how much is it worth to you to push your 911 on a road like this? And then one can answer the question, base, S, GTS, or a complete ridiculous level beyond that. None of them are a bad choice. It's more of a reflection of how bad of a car disease do you have in your head. Rather than you and I playing a round of our famous game, the options game, let's have a look at a case study that represents a masterclass in how to spec a Porsche without breaking the bank. What most folks know, Porsche's not cheap. What's little known, they have a tool in which they separate you from all of your money, and they do this by incenting you to make the car look prettier, fancier, different. This is a case where someone chose the right colors and a very small smattering of options to to make this a base car stand out. Now, this is a big function of the color. I'd like to say that I am personally responsible for this in the Porsche fleet, gentian blue, but over 16 years now, we've gotten a number of gentian blue Porsches, but all of them had a black interior. I complained, nobody listened. But then I put my money where my mouth was, bought my own car in gentian blue with a cognac interior, and someone at PCNA in Atlanta was like, that's a damn good idea. So here we have a truffle brown interior. That not cheap. $6,300. That's on top of the $120,100 price, which is $20,000 more than what these were just a couple of years ago. Inflation, it's not just a bitch with eggs, it's a bitch with Porsches as well. This one really isn't $120,000. It's $13,000 more because it has a folding roof. Then there are some other options that make it stand out. Notice the wheels. Those are the RS Spyder design wheels, which we've seen still staggered 2021, but here, $3,100. And then speaking of the convertible roof, this is brown, that's an additional like $250. Then there's a premium package. That's another expensive option, $5,200, makes the car more fancy. Things like adaptive cruise control. Now, this is where we get to really the only thing we have to pay extra for is the destination and handling von Zuffenhausen, $1,995. But here, I have a bone to pick with Porsche. My car, the destination handling wasn't too grand from what I remember, so that also has been impacted by inflation. Since we shot this car, Porsche has announced yet another price increase, so now the cheap seats 992 starts at $134,650. That brings us to a total retail price of $154,305. And here I'm going to leave you with a question until we get to the end of this episode. That's about a $155,000 base car. The base price of a GTS, which has way more power, is $164,000. So as you and I press into this latest round of things that piss me off, you will not be surprised by these two items if you are a non-alpha aficionado. And that would be the gauges and the start button. So I get it. The kids want screens these days. So yes, I am now the old guy sitting on his front porch, screaming at the kids to get off his lawn. But I think every other 911 person, no matter their age, would say the same thing. This needs to be analog. Like, I get it, you're trying to save money. It's not about giving me more functionality. You and I both know that's the case. Then there's that wretched button. Like, what the hell are you thinking? You have the start over here, whatever you want to call it, Le Mans start. There is something about feeling a key turn in a 911. And it's kind of like having the right breakfast. It's a way to start your day. I would argue the turning of the key, even though it's fake now, at least in the .1, it sets you up for the right drive, especially when you're trying to do something aggressive like this. Even a signal of, yeah, I have to do a commute, but I'm doing a commute in something different. Fix both of these things because you know you did the wrong thing. And there we stumble upon what I would argue is the biggest change in the car, and that's the brakes. So for the longest time, I have been rattling off the size of Porsche brake rotors. Like, you guys probably have it memorized. Say it with me. 330 millimeters is like the basic. That's where we get into the Porsche world. That's no longer the case here. Now it moves up to the size of the S rotors, which tells me when we change the S, they're probably going to be bigger. So it's 350 millimeters. So really what's going on here is there's more stopping power, and I would argue that makes the car more usable, more so than 9 extra horsepower. From a driving perspective, it brings everything together, and I think the biggest difference, you feel more confident driving the basic car than one did in the past. To base, or not to base? That's the question. The answer, it's a little bit more complex. You see, there's a lot of moving parts here in that the car delivers on the promise of being a 911. Yet, the base being under 400 horsepower, that just is such a psychological trick. I can't get around it, especially as the world has changed. Because 911s for many years, they were kind of off in their own area, and they still are in the way they drive, but the competition, they've caught up in their own way. And here you've got a $154,000 car. Let's say for the sake of discussion, we just say a $120,000 car with guards, red paint, and a tan interior and call it a day. For $7,000 less, one could have a Z06. What is that, 650 horsepower? Granted, they've made 57,000 Corvettes in the year 2023, so it's a lot of cars, but not Z06s, that's the kind of money here. Which brings me to the wish list. Me being a very invested Porsche guy, I would say the base needs to be over 400 horsepower, or does there really even need to be a base? I would say back to Zuffenhausen, how about the S be the base? And when you add in some chassis options as standard, maybe not everything, but a couple of things as standard, then all of a sudden it's a more compelling case because Porsche, they already know. You're going to spend at least 25 grand in options. That's the average spend in options on Macans, Cayennes, 911s, all of them. So you look at this at 133 grand and you add 25 grand, that's how we get to 150, 160, and you're already at a GTS. So maybe the base car should be 450 horsepower. That's just me. Point of the episode, I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, Motoman TV all word, Motoman TV all word, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später. So a little bit behind the scenes, what you guys don't know, we have tried for now 16 years of shooting with quiet and lights and to control the environment. And as I age and get gray hair and do more fancy cars in different places, you can't get away from the realities of life. Like right next door, there's a guy working on a drill, and we're at the end of a runway. And anyway, you get the deal. Life always happens.